Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello, welcome to the first session of second week of our course Marketing Management Part 2, when we are discussing about new products in the overall ambit of product management. Yesterday or at the end of first week, we had recognized that entrepreneurs, innovators come up with new product ideas by recognizing opportunities. Different ways people recognize opportunities, entrepreneurs recognize opportunities, were discussed in that session. Often I interact with our young budding entrepreneurs among our students, among our faculty colleagues, who come to discuss with me and say that I have this idea, and what do you think of this as a business? Remember that entrepreneurs, innovators often come up with multiple good ideas. They often come up with variants of solutions responding to the same opportunity they have recognized. The question comes up that how do we rank order these different ideas that are coming up in response to opportunity recognition. When people ask me about that I have this idea, I always say that it is better not to start with your idea, but to start with what people, prospective consumers, will do with this idea. So, a good way to start is to ask first that why anybody needs this new product or service idea that you have, why at all. The second question that must be asked also, again as you see all these questions I am looking at the external world, the market, the consumer, rather than the innovation inside the head of the entrepreneur. So, the second question, good question to ask is that who will buy this product or service and why? The next question, a good question to ask is that why will they continue to buy this product or service, and why will they buy from us? Why will they buy from you, the entrepreneur? And then of course, the last question comes up that will they tell others about this new purchase? Will they express satisfaction and will become advocate for the new product or service idea that you have promoted? These are some key measures, but we can structure this whole issue about of selection of a new product idea step by step. So, basically therefore, all entrepreneurs, most entrepreneurs, innovators, they have a pool of ideas, and then there is a screening necessary, a rank ordering necessary to select a particular idea or a particular cluster of ideas which will be pursued. So, there are some simple ways to look at these ideas and for categorization or for selection. The first one is checklist. Checklist can be seen from two different ways. Checklist in terms of consumer benefits, that is the set of questions which I was talking about just a little while back, that why will anybody buy this product or service, and what benefits they will derive, why will they buy from you, why will they continue to buy from you, and why will they talk to others and create the buzz about your product or service. And then of course, we have to also look at it from the producer benefits, that is how that particular product or service will fit within the overall charter of the organization. This part of producer benefits in the checklist is very important when we are looking at a new product in a larger organization. We will discuss that in a greater depth maybe in a later session. Today I will focus more on the entrepreneurial approaches to idea selection and idea promotion. So I am looking at it more from therefore consumer benefits and not so much from the producer benefits. Of course, certain aspects about producers' capability, competency, availability of resources, those must be checked. But in the beginning therefore, if we are looking at it from consumers' perspective, then we have to sort of map that what kind of need, what type of need will be satisfied by this particular new product or service idea. The timing of the need, in terms of frequency or duration and in terms of variation, all the temporal sides of the need and product or service matching also is necessary. Risk assessment, to what extent it is problematic for a customer to try out your new product or service idea, that has to be seen, and consumer benefits must be measured or must be evaluated in terms of the usual marketing elements like the product performance, price, communication needs, distribution needs, service needs, etc. And of course, market structure, conduct, performance. These aspects we will of course in the later sessions we will expand on these, but remember therefore, even at the initial stage when we have a number of ideas, each idea must be evaluated by using these normal yardsticks of a marketing plan. Also, just like we want to know the desirability from the customer's perspective of a particular new product or new service, we have to also see in terms of its commercial viability. So, we have to understand the kind of cash flow that will be generated, kind of cash demand that will be there for the new product or service to be delivered, the entire operational mechanism, what it will take, what kind of resources it will take, and not so much in the long term. Of course, no business is worth unless in the long term it is profitable. So therefore, return on investment, return on equity, assets, sales, cost of capital, and these usual measures that you see on the screen, those all are necessary. Of course, in these days, in the days of these so called unicorn e-commerce companies where $1 billion valuation is sought for within a few months or within a year, companies do not really bother too much in the initial phase about these conventional financial measures. Their main measure at that point of time is in terms of customer acquisition, in terms of customer relations, in terms of reaching out, in terms of market penetration. And these days therefore, these long term financial benefits are kept on the canvas, but initially tactically more emphasis is given to market share, mind share, market penetration, the speed of launch, the coverage and so on.
I will just intervene here. I think you have raised some of the very important points here. So, there are two things which I think you have said in a very important way. One was the cash flows or the demand of cash. This is something which is very important for a startup, and the uncertainty around the profitability or the business model. So, since you have talked about this, some of the this e-commerce companies and the viability of their business model has to be still established. It is important for any student to understand is that the way probably a large firm can afford to remain probably without profitability, or they will not need external cash requirement, unlike a small time startup. So, if you are continuously, if the business idea requires the investment of money into that business for a long period without much of return in the initial period. So, for a startup it could be a problem. The same business probably a good idea for a large firm, but the small firm which is cash starved, it could be a good thing. And the uncertainty around the idea, because the more the uncertainty, you are not sure about the return on investment, because in that case what will happen is that investors will not like to put their money into the
unless of course they are able to attract venture capital.
Yes.
Because venture capitalists really look for this one big idea.
One.
They are prepared to take 9 failures in search of that one mega success. So, they are therefore able to, that is why the venture capital is also called the risk capital, which means that they are not, they will not be evaluating the business as a bank would. So, therefore, if you are if you are an entrepreneur, you have to see that whether your idea is really differentiated and really so attractive and so novel that the venture capitalists will be seeing the potential of a big breakthrough. In that case, what they call the cash burn rate, that means at what rate you can absorb cash in your business by rapid expansion, is given more importance than cash generation or cash surplus. But if it is a conventional new business, if it is a me too business, then as Professor Mishra said, if you are a startup, you have to be financially prudent. So, the financial model is therefore ultimately all businesses will have to follow this kind of conventional return on investment, return on sales, return on assets, return on equity and so on. But there are certain novel breakthrough new types of business models, as we see particularly in the e world, which may not initially conform to this model. They may try to experiment with this very rapid expansion, what they call blitzkrieg, which means at now almost like a storm, they want to penetrate the market as fast as possible, touch as many customers as fast as possible. So, that is a different kind of measure. So, you need to therefore evaluate that what is the nature of your business, and what is the nature of your business, how good you can be, how fast you can be, will again be evaluated by answering those fundamental questions, that why will anybody buy your product, and what benefit it is bringing, what kind of exceptional attraction it is bringing to the table.
Yeah, and there it becomes very important, as you have said, like why will they continue to, because if you like in e-commerce, if you start giving that big discount, whether the customer will still remain with you, or you have just given the discount for the say, I mean acquiring the customer at the first stage, and when you remove those discount, they do not come back to you.
So, the whole idea is that you may create a price sensation, but the whole idea should be that you are using that as a tool to make the customer to come to you. But once the customer comes to you, if further retention depends on this continuing heavy discount, then that business model might fail. But however, if you are doing such value engineering in the supply chain that you do not have enough inventory cost, or you are able to like Amazon or some other people showed that if you are able to create a business model where you are extremely inventory light and you are fundamentally connecting people who have stock with people who need the product, and in the mean you are just an information oriented intermediary, or as they call infomediary, then that is a different type of business model. There even if you are actually therefore operating at a low margin, because your own costs are lower, so you can afford to give a discount. So, if you do not have that fundamental financial strength and you are just giving discount just to attract customers, then you must remember that there must be other features in the product or service that you are offering, which will continue to bring the customer back to you. So, which means what you see on the next slide, this Rogers 5 factors, which we will again discuss when we discuss a new product in a large organization. Rogers 5 factors ultimately will come into play, which means that whatever new product or service you are promoting, it must have relative advantage compared to the current solutions. It can be complex inside, but it must be very simple at the user interface level. It must be compatible, backward compatible. It must not be like you cannot come up now with a keyboard which does not follow the QWERTY QWERTY format, because that has become a standard. Maybe someday somebody will come up with a keyboard which will be so intuitive and so great that it can break that format. But when you break a format, you have to be very, very careful that there is enough power in that new idea that this backward compatibility becomes no longer important. In 90% or more than 90% cases, this backward compatibility, that means do not present a way of using the product which is entirely different, then it might cause a problem. Like for example, on smartphones there are these features like voice command, but you will observe around you that maybe 5% people use the voice command instead of the button command. So, this compatibility, backward compatibility is a very powerful force. So, do not tinker with it unless you are very, very sure. And of course, the benefits must be very clearly communicable, and at the and on top of everything, a new product, new service, the more you create opportunities for the customer for trial, better it is. From the organization's point of view, a new product or new service, the checklist or the screening criteria are obviously marketability, and marketability means how big the market is, how fast the market growth is, how accessible that market is, and so on. So, you cannot actually today think of a market which exists in Australia, because before that you will have to go through a whole lot of tests that how are you going to reach the customers in Australia. So, that developing the market, what will be the cost of developing that market, that also is as important as marketability. So, you may have a product which is very attractive for people who are actually on the seaside and enjoying a holiday, but then if you are going to look at the whole world, the sea resort market, seaside resort market, you have to be careful that what it will cost you to develop that kind of market. And then manufacturability, cost, logistics, the usual operations points are also very, very important for the developer's point of view to see how they will make their idea actualization possible. So, from the idea in the lab or from the idea at your prototype stage or proof of idea stage and market penetration, market salience achievement, between these two ends lies all these different tests and assessments which you must do, and you must do multiple times. That is why we I think explained in the previous weeks sessions that this usual linear model or stage gate model, by which at multiple stages we test the new idea and how it is progressing, is often a repetitive process. You can't actually just you may sometimes go back to the drawing board and come up with a new idea to improve the logistics. Like for example, I have read that when Tata's, they developed this Tata Swatch, this water filter. The initial model, even though it was very found to be very attractive by intended target customers, because it cleans, it filters water without much of power consumption, and it has many other very low cost features. But they found that to penetrate rural Indian market, they needed a per unit this logistics cost, which was not achieved by the initial model. So, they went back and they changed the design in such a way that more number of units could be stacked inside a container, and so they improved by I think some 50-60% the number of units that could be stacked. So, that is why in the initial stage each one of these factors are equally important for the ultimate success of a new product. So, an attribute list, there will be specific items and there can be different importance that can be attached, that which is more, and that is how a multi criteria decision can be done by balancing customer needs, supplier capabilities, and the competitors, what is available in the market. So, once ideas have been screened and then the survivors, the few of them. So, there may be initially only about 20 ideas, and after the initial filtration etc., we might be left with maybe 3 or 5 ideas, and then we have to go do this kind of concept test. Nowadays it is also sometimes called protocepting, which is that representation of the benefits, and through words, pictures, sometimes some paper models or working models, and then interact with stakeholders, both employees as well as future possible customers, and make an assessment. I will end today with this, which might actually form the backdrop for our further discussions during this week, that why good ideas fail. So, it could be due to initial incomplete strategy, communication may be faulty, there might have been good bad interlink between the people who are interacting in the front end with the customers versus people who are developing the product, and so there are these I think some of these ideas which are at the towards the later end can be discussed. They are more finer points, they deal with psychology of the developer, they deal with organizational behavior etc., about this self deception or overconfidence or confusion or bad communication inside the organization. So, we will discuss all of that, but this one is a very important interesting idea, this 10. They say that actually every new product you are starting with, there should be some kind of a plan B, plan C, that if it does not work out, then what are you going to do. So, that kind of if then analysis is also important before we get whole hog into a new product launch. So, I think I will end here, and tomorrow Professor Mishra will take up about this new product, how it is nurtured, evaluated and tested in a large organization, and then we will proceed towards our product life cycle and the management of a product from its inception to its saturation. Okay, thank you.